Hello everyone. This time in the world of Mr. Ink, I'm replacing the rear suspension arms. Now, just to update, the front suspension has obviously been complete now. And the rear suspension was half done by Craig. The worst bits were done. The rear arms, the springs, the shock absorbers. All we've got to do is the rear arms. So we're going to talk about the, well, technical, what they call the banana arm, the upper arm, and the lower radius arm, alongside a train arm bush. And I'll show you what sort of tools to use for this job and try and keep this as brief as possible. But those are the only pieces of the suspension that need to be changed. It's a relatively simple job if you have a train arm bush tool. You do need that tool to do this job in situ, and I'm going to show you how to do it in situ with that tool. And you can't really change the train arm bush without disconnecting the rear arms that I'm changing today. So it makes sense to save this job as a complete job in itself. Now, I've already changed the driver's side and I did hit some struggles. One of the bolts of the rear lower arm I had to cut out, again replaced with a new bolt and nut, which you should have. You should have new bolts and a nut kit, which should be quite it should be quite thorough, because most of the time you will not reuse the old bolts, and you shouldn't do. So that had to be cut out, but everything went back really nicely. Suspension sits as it normally does. There won't be any change, and it looks $1,000,000 underneath. And the difference, despite the fact that I've been driving on that car for about a week now, with one new trailing bush and one old one, I can feel the difference going around corners straight away. The car seems to just steer exactly where it goes. The back end of the car is extremely stiff, and you get that feeling of a sort of active suspension. Passive rear-wheel steering is a major factor with this suspension, and those train arm bushes with those very thin control blade train arms that flex during cornering, that is what makes a Mark 1 handle the way it does at the rear end of the car. So changing the train arm bushes will make the most difference of all the things. So the rear arms, not so much, but the bushes are knackered and the arms are quite rusty. On the estate, we have a heavy duty control on, which I'm going to show you outside. So let's get on. Right, okay, so to start off this job, I'm going to try and keep this video as brief as possible, and my work is already cut out. So just to recap what we're doing, we are replacing this banana arm. Now, this is what we call the banana arm. On the estates, it looks a bit different. It's a heavy duty arm. This arm was used on Mark 2s, 3s, Ford Cougars, believe it or not, at the same age. Yeah, so this arm was actually, I think this was the first time they'd used this type of arm on a Ford, and it had been used on this suspension quite a bit down the years. A lot of people have suggested, well, can you fit that to a hatch? I'm not too sure, actually. Being that the subframes are absolutely the same on Mark 2s and 3s, bar from a minor difference of the exhaust mounting, I think that arm would fit very nicely and probably stiffen the suspension up. Being the estate, it has to cope with heavier weight, so clearly a more beefy arm was needed. This radius arm is also being replaced today. I have a bolt that is seized in the bush. That's always the one that goes. I'm just going to bring you around it. You can see that the bolt has actually started to come out of the welded nut, but unfortunately is stuck in the bush. So what's happening is this piece of the control arm hub assembly, because this is the control blade, it's actually spreading this, because as you can see, the bolt isn't coming out here because it's coming this way with the bush pushing against the welded nut. So I'm going to have to cut in a few places, which I'm going to explain in a second. That bolt has come loose. That never seizes. That will never seize. And this never seizes. In fact, you'll find that no WD-40 is required. It will come off. That's how good those bolts are. It's this one that is in the lowest point along with the lower arm bolt. They are bad for seizing. Now, on the estate, you've got a bit of a problem getting to that bolt right there because the shock absorber's in the way. For fuck's sake. Yes, unbelievable. So what you've got to do is take the shock absorber from its bottom mounting. I've got a tip for you. That will come out easy because it was put in not long ago, well, a few months ago now. And then you have to basically pull the shock absorber up and move it up here. Be careful though, because you don't want to catch the shock absorber against this sharp bit of body. You don't want to dent the shock absorber. So please bring it up out the way so that you can access that bolt from the underside, so you can go round the back. You may need an aviation spanner because that's the most difficult bolt to get to, even on hatches. And then obviously the train arm bush, we've got the 2 bolts up there. I'll show that in a bit. You may have to disconnect the ABS wiring because it's for safety in this case. But overall, all these bolts are loose, and these are the ones you concentrate on first of all. Now, I am standardising on Melee. This is the stuff I've put on the other side. We have all new bolts here in a bolt kit. Now, this didn't come from Melee. It came from a company called Tedgum. But Tedgum. And it's a bolt kit for the rear suspension on this car and Volvo's, because they basically use the same suspension later on, obviously, because it's based on a Focus. So we've got new nuts as well, because we're going to need them, because that welded nut here is going to be cut off. Obviously, this arm, lovely, fantastic. Don't get it the wrong way. Have a look at where the arm is facing. So you put it like that. I've known many people to put it on like that, the wrong way round. Please don't do that. I did that many years ago. Stupidity. The banana arm. Now that was about £20 each, I would say. This one, the heavy duty arm, well, that will go on like that. Remember, don't put it on like that. I've had members complain about ride height issues. If you put it on like that, you're going to have a ride height issue. Please make sure it goes in like that. Okay, that's all ready to go on. There's your parts number of this heavy duty arm. Okay, it's your parts number to that as well. Okay, and a train arm bush. 714-710-001. Easy, lovely. So that's your kit. That's not going to see that until far later, because I'm afraid we've got a lot of cutting to do. So all these bolts are basically undone, apart from that one. We need to cut that off with an angle grinder. Now what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get your grinder and cut on this side to cut this nut off. You're going to have to cut the welded nut off this side, and you're going to go on the inside, because I can guarantee this arm will not drop unless you have actually chopped off more of the bolt where my finger is either side of the bush. So where the bolt protrudes, so say that's the bolt. Okay, so you're cutting off the welded nut on that side, you're cutting off that hex on this side, but I guarantee it will sit like that. You'll have a bit of bolt there and a bit of bolt there that will keep that arm from dropping. You must chop as much of that bolt flush with the bush, and then it will pop down. These bushes are quite a tight fit into the subframe, so please make sure that you've done that. Okay, so bear that in mind. Just going to put that bolt over there. Yeah, so I'll come back to you when that is all cut off. Right, that was fun. That was really fun. I've just put the grinder back down. It's still red hot, and as you can see on the floor, we have the nut. That's the one piece you cut off, then the welded nut, And the weld snapped off quite nicely, with half the bolt stuck in it. Then we had to slice into the bush on the inside here, okay? Because that bolt will be keeping that bush in situ. So you have to cut on the inside, just tiny pieces. I mean, literally not much at all. Ow, that's still hot. But now, if I just give this a bit of a hammer, there we go, that's gone. That is out. You see how much of that bolt is sticking out? It will not release from this knuckle. Now it's released. Now we're in business. Look, it takes a few goes, get some cutting disc, get a big cutting disc, it will start to look a bit small. In fact, if you've got an old small cutting disc, I recommend that, because where you're going to be cutting is kind of here, and you don't want to start cutting into the knuckle. It could be very easy. So literally you're cutting on the inside here and here, okay? So you cut here first of all, then you cut the welded nut off, then you cut here, then you cut here. You actually do that for that bolt and that bolt. That's what Craig was doing in the garage, which is why it took so long, because each bolt takes about 20 minutes to get out. If you're quick about it and you've got a really powerful grinder and your technique is good. But that's it. Now, technique. I have moved the shock absorber. I've got to clear all this metal dust off everywhere. I don't know, we'll be getting a bit of clean. Subframe's looking okay. A bit surface rusty in places, but you know, it's typically can be expected, and there's no deterioration under there from what I can see and there, so I'm really pleased. But the shock absorber is here, and it isn't bending against the bracket, is it? No, it's not. It's okay, but don't push it up more than this because you'll bend it. So put the shock absorber up here, and you've got access to that back bolt there. You can see it starting to come out, but what I'm having to do is get my 15mm aviation spanner, and just, you've got to go in there, and you just got to keep going forwards and backwards. This one's got to come out, that one's almost out, and yeah, it's as simple as that. GoPro stop recording. Now, there is a sequence to all this. There is a deliberate sequence that you have to follow, otherwise you're going to find it impossible to line all these bolts back up. Believe you me, this suspension is really, really tight. Look how good this bolt is. There's hardly any corrosion on that whatsoever because of where it is. Now the brake hose bracket is part of this assembly. Just bring this out. And you might have to wind these bolts out a lot because that will be stuck in the bush. Not quite. Come on. Oh, that's out. There we go. Done. Oh. And the suspension will drop because we've got no forward pressure now. That is a good bolt, that is. That is a really good bolt. In fact, that's so good, I'll probably end up putting it in my spares. But anyway, that's now released, and that's now released. Okay, put that on the side. Now you will need a jack to jack up just under here, okay, on the bottom of the knuckle, just here. Just so that everything doesn't collapse entirely. You've got to control everything, and literally you take what we could do, because we've got this one off almost. Let me just bang that out. Yeah, it's out. You take that one out, you take that one out, you take that one out, well, cut it off I should say, and you take that one out. Then we jack up. We do it in that order. Right, I've just spoken to the camera for 3 minutes and realised my mic wasn't turned on. Round 2, Andrew, blooper. Right, as you can see, the train arm is dropped. We have taken the 2 bolts out that are here. Take it out with a impact gun if you've got one, but a long range extension will be fine. The bolts never seize. I mean, you look at the top of that, you know, it's all clean because it goes into the car. No problem. It's behind the back seats. Now, we're all off. In terms of the arms, the bushes are absolutely shot. How on earth is that? That's not coming out. It's just welded itself completely. There's hardly any... No. Well, the bushes are shot, possibly from a bit of heat as well from my blowtorch. I did need a bit of heat. I've never known these arms to snap, but they are serious advisories on MOTs. Right, cut a long story short. ABS wire, please disconnect it. When you drop this train arm, even with the jack supporting it, it's going to drop. That's going to pull. Don't have a snapped wire, please, because that's going to be a serious headache for you. So please take this grommet out of here. This grommet goes into the bodywork there, and this, obviously, just take it out, that plug just there. Okay, that white plug. So we've got no problems here. Now, quick question. Design ride height setting. Why does it not work? I can demonstrate straight away. So, the bolt goes through these two pieces of metal here. Two pieces of metal, two pieces of metal, two pieces of metal. Okay? Now, what happens when you torque that bolt? You are pressurizing these two pieces of metal together to crush against the metal collar of the bush. Those two pieces of metal are crushing it and pinching it in place. And it makes sure that whatever height you've set the suspension at before you've torqued the bolts, it will hold the suspension once the bolts are torqued and the metal is clamped. That's not moving from its position. It will swing with the suspension, but it won't actually alter its position in terms of how it's orientated. With me? If you're not, don't worry about it. Quite complex, very technical, and Ford knew what they were doing. However, why does it not work today? Well, surface rust, corrosion, loss of metal, and even by torquing the bolt up correctly, it's not going to clamp, it's going to let the arm move about a bit, and as soon as you drop the jack, you're going to get a big arch gap. Now, luckily, the arch gap is fine on this. I'm not going to even bother with this. But on a lot of cars, it's a problem. On 50 Shades, it was a problem. On a lot of hatches, saloons, it's a problem with the strut, with a different suspension setup to the estate. Estate owners probably don't need to worry about it. But other owners, yes. I'd recommend ST170 rear springs. I'm not joking for your hatchback. They are lower. They will bring the height down to a reasonable level. Even with them, it's too... You look at 50 Shades, you'll not even blink and think it's an ST170 rear spring. Oh, it is. And it's because of surface corrosion. The only people that get away with it are very lucky, or two, they've had their subframes, rear subframes replaced. Now, you can't get new rear subframes for the estates at the moment, which is a problem, but I'm hoping to preserve this as best as possible because I have to. But if you've got a new subframe, theoretically, it should clamp. But because new subframes, aftermarket tolerances are not quite there, I wouldn't even expect it to work on them. So that answers that question. Now, train on bush needs to be removed. And I'll tell you what, it's not in bad condition. I'll tell you that. Now, I have made some paint markings here and here, and it lines up with the piece of metal, okay, going through the bush. You must do that. If you don't do that, you'll put an excessive strain on the train arm bush. It will wear out prematurely. I don't think you have alignment issues, but it will wear the bush out prematurely because it'll be like forced at the wrong angle. There's a reason for that angle. Make sure it's correct. Now, we're going to do this in here. I've had to move the handbrake cable from this side to this side so I can push this bush out. By the way, this bush will push from the outside inwards, okay? And the reason for that is because it sits like this, and this groove is on this side, okay? It sits like that. So you can't push it that way. You're going to have to push it inwards. To install it, you go out, into out, which is more tricky, which is why I've got so many axle stands and security devices, because you are going to need to get under there. There is no ifs about it, okay? I might have to crawl under quite, yeah, I know. This is the tool. It is applicable for Mark 1 and Mark 2 focuses only. Mark 3 is different train on bush design. Mark II's retained the trailing arm bush design, and simply this hooks around the trailing arm bush, okay, around the control blade itself, okay. Now you've got two devices. Now I believe that is for pushing in. That's for when we're installing. For now, we need this, pushing out. It simply goes on here, that slots in, and that will slot against, oh, by the way, it's got a slot for going around there, but basically it will slot in quite nicely. There you go. That's sitting nice and true straight away, okay. Now we need to wrap this tool around, because this side needs to be on that side, so I'll cut back and show you. Okay, right, I've had to lower this down a little bit, and I've just had to jack up. So I've lowered the arm as low as possible. I have jacked up just on the disc, just to keep the disc upright so that this isn't under strain. Now, what I've done is I've brought the tool round to the other side, pushed the handbrake to that side, okay, so the handbrake is out the way, and the tool goes in from behind. The cup is sitting against the bush. The cup, this thread is nicely seated. I've now got it butted up. 16mm socket, 1/2 inch please. You can use a breaker if you want, but to be honest it's not necessary. Now what I suggest here is really something you need to do. You need to oil the threads to prevent stripping the threads. It's as simple as that, and you can start. Yeah, that's already going. Now I'm going to need 2 hands. Off we go. Just keep looking at what you're doing all the time. I can assure you, pushing the bush out is the easy bit, because you're here, you're not under the car. When you do it in situ, oh yeah, that's coming out. I can already start to see it moving, and this tool feels really, really good. If it gets stiff, please feel free to give it some more WD. Ah, no, that's gone. That's gone. That's gone. Oh, that's gone. My tool's gone suddenly very, very loose. Release the cup. Come on. There we go. Easy as you like. So easy and stress-free. I've never had a problem with doing that. That will never be used for many years now. Yeah, the bush is now loose. Oh, I have to get this whole tool out now. Excuse me. Come out. Oh yeah, because the bloody handbrake cable is being very obliging. There we go, there's your bush. Out it comes, and your tool pops out as well. There we go. Okay, that was how easy it was. Now I have to say, I knew this anyway. I'm impressed by this bush. I mean, there's cracking where the metal, I've seen it where the metal is literally disconnected from the bush. There's lots of cracking, but it's actually, that's not bad at all. That's really not bad. I'm impressed by that. I really am. Just compare, just to check. Yeah, it's exactly the same. Right, now I'll put that aside now. That was easy, and we're now halfway there. I'm going to do a bit of cleaning up. Please, can you make sure you get some good sandpaper, a very fine grit to go over here, because we need to make this nice and smooth. I can feel and I can see surface rust. Remember, our paint markings are still in place for orientation purposes. Now, there is a mark here which I'm curious about, because that is not the way the bushes were orientated. So that's an interesting one. I'm going to put the bushes in exactly the way they came out, and that is always best practice. So that's why you've got the paint markings. But yeah, please go through with some sandpaper into that thing, because you just, it's tough enough as it is getting it back in, I can assure you. And because you're doing it in there, you can't get leverage. So please be mindful. Anyway, I'm going to clean this up, throw bits in the bin and reset. Okay, so why is the suspension jacked up so high and the spring is highly dangerously compressed? Well, this is the technique of getting these arms in. So remember when I said earlier there's a sequence to doing this. The main thing you need to know is you must do this arm first. You cannot do this arm and then try and get the last bolt in, which might be this one probably, because it's easier, it's nearer to you. You'll do that one first and this one. Don't. It'll be impossible to get it in. It won't line up. It will refuse. The hub will just twist this way. So what do you do about that? You put that bolt in first. You put that bolt in second. We've got a welded nut on the other side here. Then you put that nut in up there, bolt in up there. Lovely. Then last of all, this bolt, last one. And as you can see, we've got through just about, but we can't quite get through to this side at the moment where this welded nut is. Remember your bracket, don't forget your bracket. The reason we've jacked it up is because the final arm, whichever arm you do, it's got to be this one, to be honest, it will twist. It wants to go like that. And you can't get that bolt in at all with the arm like that. So by jacking it up, you're straightening the arm for the bolt to come through. That's what you need to do. Now, those people who've done this on their Mark 1s will be saying, yeah, found out that the hard way. You have to play around a little bit with the suspension to get that final bolt home. Anybody knows that. Once you've done that, shock absorber bolt. I've got a brand new one somewhere. There you go. Lots of copperies, please. Lots of copperies forever. Their bolts will never seize. So, I never say never, it is a Ford. Withdraw the shock absorber, put the bottom bolt back in, 115 newton meters on all the bolts, and you are done. That is it. That is literally us finished. The suspension will reset. There might be a clunk because the suspension needs to settle in. So the first time you move off your driveway, there will be a suspension clunk as it settles in. Once you've heard that clunk, no problems. Now we have disconnected the ABS wiring. Connect that back up. You may get a light on your dashboard to set it up. I haven't disconnected the battery, so no doubt I'll get a light from the system saying, oh, ABS. Don't worry about that. It will go off after you do about 10 miles an hour. It will do a systems check and it's all connected. Yep, turn the light off. So don't worry about ABS lights after this job. If you disconnect the battery, then that won't come on, but I couldn't be bothered. It's one bloody plug. Anyway, guys, I will leave you be. Thank you for enjoying all the episodes I've done on Mr. Ink this year. I think there is one more to come. Yeah, there definitely is one more to come because there's another repair to come. But this is the mainstay of the jobs on Mr. Ink. We have redone the brakes, apart from the hard lines, which don't need doing at this moment. Probably will do at some point. And the suspension has been completely redone. Apart from the subframes, which are in serviceable condition. You can't get the rear subframes on the estates, like I've said. The front subframe, very serviceable, nothing a problem. And to be honest, I'd probably replace that when the steering rack needs replacing. That will be done in the future, but not this year. We have done enough this year, and I've made too many videos. So to the next video, probably the last one I'll do before my YouTube break. Take care, and you will feel the difference for your Mark 1 after doing this job. I suggest you do what I've done and replace both arms with the bush. Replacing just the bush is pointless because you'll have to cut things off. So replace all the arms, and honestly, it'd be a night and day difference. I can't wait. Now both sides are done. Take care.